Hi, this is Mark Laughlin with the Ambidextrous Gunfighter with review number 2, first mags through the Springfield Hellcat. Now, we'll just kind of do a semi-unboxing here. This is an interesting part, not legal in California with high-capacity magazines. Well, California, you're not legal in the United States. Okay, anyway, so you get in this box, you get a nice little portfolio here with your Springfield Hellcat, ready to rock and roll. 2 magazines. Not sure what this little pad thing is in there. If anybody knows what that is, please comment in the description. Yeah, I don't know. And then this little elastic thing. I cannot get a magazine to fit in that for nothing, so I'm not sure what its purpose is either. Got your instruction manuals and all that other shit, so, and the lock and all that, but and I start off, I spent 2 weeks with the pistol just with dummy rounds, you know, working out the manual of arms and just making sure I'm totally familiar with it, how I'm going to operate it one-handed, how I'm going to operate it with the thumbs forward hold as well. I'm using exclusively SIG Elite ammunition, so it's a brass case. So I'm not here trying to test it with every brand of ammunition. I'm actually looking more for the ambidextrous gunfighter ergos on this. So now, one thing I really like about this, in fact, you know, if you see my other videos, you know I'm a huge fan of the paddle magazine release, and often, yeah, almost swore off ever buying a button magazine pistol ever again. Well, of course, the micros, we don't have any micro pistols with the paddle magazine release, so I thought I'd give the Hellcat a try. And for a button magazine, this is probably the best I've ever seen. It's very ergonomic. Now that, of course, could be based on my hands, and I do have a kind of a motocross deformed thumb, so maybe something weird's going on there. But for me, I'm able to reach it quite easily and operate it. The cool thing is, unlike the SIG, is I don't get any interference on the opposite side into my fingers. So the SIG 365, I do get some interference there, so I have to kind of make sure I clear. On a SIG, you have to clear that button before you kind of push it on this side. No problems with that on the Hellcat. And then also, the way the mag well is designed with these lips on it is that when you insert the mag, or if you eject the mag, is you're getting very little interference, potential of interference with your hand. Now again, I've got medium to smallish, I guess, hands. Some guys with the really big meaty hands, it might be that the flesh of their hand gets into that and interferes a bit. But for a compact pistol, this is really minimal interference for ejecting the magazine. Now, one of the key advantages that I advocate for the paddle magazine release is you do not run into the issue of an accidental mag release, like especially for pocket carry. If you're pocket carrying and if you're kind of a manly guy and you're down on the ground sometimes working underneath the car or underneath the crawl space in a house or something, and you may be dragging your butt around on the ground, and the ground pushing against the side of the pistol inside your pocket can eject that magazine. I've even had it happen on some of my other pistols like the LCP and PF9, where I just kind of bump into stuff in an office setting, and I come home and find that my mag has been ejected. And that's the other thing about this, is it seems that this mag release is very well protected, very much like the FNS9C. The FNS9C is a very well protected mag release, but it's a little bit harder to use than this one. Now, again, as I've discussed in some other videos, I don't regard the magazine thing, optimal, fast, speedy reloads being that critical for your average civilian self-defense CCW. Most people, 90% of the time, most people aren't carrying an extra magazine, so who cares if the reloads are that fast? And if you do carry a magazine, if you haven't, after the first, in this case, 11 rounds, if you haven't solved the problem, or at least solved the problem enough to where you can get to cover and do a mag reload, then maybe there's something else going on. So now the other thing that kind of differentiates this from the SIG P365 is the slide release is much further to the rear of the pistol. On the SIG P365, it's right up close to the takedown lever. So this is going to be kind of a preference thing. I actually like it. I find that I get good leverage on that button with the knuckle of my thumb, instead of trying to reach with and dig into up here further with the kind of the side and tip of my thumb. So I find getting it with the knuckle works really well. Now, of course, with small handguns, if you're doing typically you're going to be using a one-handed hold for what these are designed for. It's going to be one-handed point shooting. But if you do get the opportunity to do the two-handed hold, you're definitely going to want to make sure you clear your thumb here of that slide release, because it could interfere and prevent it from, slide from locking back on empty. Not a big thing, but what I've worked out is to do the thumb forward and then bring that thumb over and kind of a little bit grip down and kind of help pull this thumb into the slide and hopefully hold the muzzle down. Now, I have not yet been able to hold the muzzle down. It's a little bit snappy. I do also try to kind of pinch between the thumb and the forefinger against the trigger guard to kind of get a bite on it and try to hold that from coming off. Now, so far that's not worked for me, but I don't really care, because for me this is, like I say, 90% of the time it's going to be one-handed point shooting. Now, one cool thing I like is it has this kind of a flare right beneath the slide. A little bit of what you might call a fence, or a flaring fence. It's not a lot. It doesn't really add much to the overall width, but it does also put the controls in where it's a very snag-free controls. I think these controls are probably as snag-free as the SIG SAS. But on that subject, the sights are not. I do find that this rear sight does snag a bit trying to get it out of a pocket. Now, of course, I've mentioned in my first video on this, I would like to have a slide release over here for shooting left-handed. I'm not, again, engineering, that may be impossible, but it would be really cool if it could make that happen. And then, of course, a paddle magazine release or a non-opposable button magazine release would be ideal. I've tried to imagine how a non-opposable button magazine would be made. Again, that requires something of an engineering feat. Now, the other thing about this nice little fence is it kind of prevents your hand meat from coming in contact with the reciprocating slide. And as I even tried a couple of shots with my thumb kind of up into the slide, and I could feel the slide move under it, and because of that little bit of a fence there, a little bit of elevation off the slide, it kept kept me from getting a bruised thumb, I guess you'd say. But the other thing is I really like is that the slide, let me take it down here and do a quick field strip. The bottom edge of the slide is very nicely rounded. So if this was to come back on your web of your thumb, if you got really meaty hands and it comes up above that beaver tail, it's probably not going to cut you like some will do. So that's really nice. I really like that. Just a nice little bit of added finish on this pistol that's very impressive. Now, that's one thing I did notice. It took me a long time to realize that this rotates different than most pistols. So now the trigger is actually really pretty good on this pistol. And I think how they've accomplished that is, again, I guess I need to tear this down again. Now the trigger bar here, this is the safety plunger, the striker block plunger. It deactivates it, and basically it rides right on top of the plunger. Now if you work the reset, operation of the trigger stays on top of that plunger. It's not really coming down off of it, but just a little tiny bit. So it's not, if you work the reset on the pistol, you don't have that adding to the feel of the trigger. So that's, I think, why this trigger is pretty good on this. Unlike the H&K VP9, which has that reset that wants to push your thumb or push your trigger finger forward. Now we have, there have been testers that have noted that if you push just a little bit, not much pressure on the side of the trigger, and then pull it back to where it comes in contact with the safety, and then try to fire it, it kind of locks up. Now that can be resolved by taking a little file, a very light file, and just very minutely rounding off the sharp edge on the safety part back here where it strikes the frame. And I'll link to a video of a guy that did that. Now I'm not going to do this on mine because I want to see if I ever have an issue with that thing binding up in real world use. So far I have not. I have not had any issue when practicing with the dummy rounds, and I have not had any issue yet with my limited actual live rounds. But that's something we want to keep in mind and see if that does ever arise. Now, as I mentioned in the first video, the slide serrations could use some H&K VP9 type supports on the back. This is a fairly stiff spring, and getting a hold of it, takes some pretty good firm grip to keep a grip. These serrations just aren't sharp enough, in my opinion. Now, you can get a hold of it and try to use that rear sight a bit to get a bit of a bite, but it's just not as. The serrations would just need to be more aggressive, I think, or at least add maybe some little H&K VP9 style slide supports on the back. And of course, with that shelf on the rear sight, you can do the whole, operation with belt side operation with that the rear sight. Now, what really matters on this pistol, the key thing is that it's 11 rounds in this little tiny package. It's basically the same size as the SIG P365, which has 10 rounds, and this has 11. So it's just more efficient. It has 0.6 rounds per ounce, 2.7 rounds per square inch being height times width. It tops all the micros as far as capacity for size and weight. Tops all pistols on weighted rounds with marginal utility scores. That is all stock pistols. As I mentioned previous video, the Glock 43X and 48, if you get the Shield Arms S15 magazines, that puts those two pistols to the top. But for a stock pistol, comes right out of the box, top of the stock pistols of the micros on weighted rounds, marginal utility rounds. And you have to check out my spreadsheet. I'll put links below in that if you don't understand what I'm talking about, marginal utility rounds. I'm just not going to go over that every time I do a video on these things. So check out those links in the description. Now the VP9 in comparison is 0.67 rounds per ounce and 2.64 rounds per square inch. So it's very efficient as well, but of course it is a bigger pistol. It's not something you're going to pocket carry. Now, one thing I like, besides this being one round more than the 365, is that, okay, you say, well, we go to 365 XL, which is a 12-round pistol and competes a little bit better with this. And basically, that is the same as with the extended magazine that comes from Springfield. That is about the same length as a 365 XL, but with a longer barrel, has a 0.7-inch longer barrel. So, but the reason for me the 365 is not my ideal is because I cannot pocket carry it. So 365 would be a great concealed carry holster, mount on the side or appendix carry inside the waistband, whatever, but or vest. But for a pocket carry, you simply cannot hardly beat this. It's a little bit fatter than my Kel-Tec PF9, but it does fit in a pocket and I can get it in and out. Like I said, I do get a little bit of a snag with the rear sight. What I would really like to see is SAS type sights on this, like the SIG SAS, and maybe if somebody would come up, instead of an RMR or a red dot on here, is I would like to put on this, remove this plate and put a very flush mounting laser, a little laser that maybe just barely stuck off and shot up that way with the battery compartment in there, out of the way of the sight, so you can still use the iron sights and have that little laser. That to me would be a pretty cool use of that OSP mount there. It's typically for an optical sight, the red dot sights. Now, I'm just not a fan of the red dots. Basically, if I put a red dot here, I'm not going to be able to pocket carry this. Now, maybe I will probably try a red dot on at some point just to see what the fuss is about. But for right now, for me as a point shooter, where I'm not even bringing the pistol up to my eye level, I would prefer a laser. One other little check I want to do is I've got one round in the chamber. I have a full magazine, and what I want to check is one is how hard, okay, I can get the magazine to snap in. Now let's see if I can do a chamber check. And there we go, we see I have a round in the chamber, and let's see if that, make sure that slide goes forward. A little bit of resistance, not much, but I'm thinking that at least maybe if after break-in it might get a little better, but if you do have a full magazine and you're doing a chamber check, you might want to do a forward assist. So in sum, I have to say this is probably the best micro compact pistol I think I've ever owned. Now, not to say that the SIG 365 series isn't, I mean, it's a very, very, very close competitor, but there are just so many things I like about this. You know, of course, the OSP support, the slide, the fence here, making it so snag free. It's very grippy, get a good firm hold on it, very good for pocket carry. And then the big thing, of course, is the extra round over the SIG P365 when you're talking about the seriously micro pocket carry type pistols. I'm just shocked that this came from Springfield Army. I mean, this is a company that, in my opinion, has been kind of stagnant for years, and this is just a spectacular achievement in engineering for the 11 rounds in such a small package. And the quality just strikes me as just, I mean, look at the magazine, you know, that's just gorgeous workmanship. I mean, just looking at the materials, this kind of reminds me of my VP9. It's pretty inside. It looks good inside. Good quality material, good construction, good engineering. Very impressed. Congratulations, Springfield Army. This is, my opinion, top of the line for the micro compact pistols. So this is Mark Laughlin with the Ambidextrous Gunfighter. Our first mags review of the Hellcat by Springfield Army. Thanks for watching.